Okay, hi everyone. This is Joanne Nistico, and I'm very excited you're joining me on a happy Earth Day. Earth Day, April 22nd, 2020, a really special day for us here in this time of being sequestered due to the COVID-19. So we are so happy that you're able to join us, be a part of a community that wants to discuss relevant topics on health and wellness, which is so critical to our time now. And we're like-minded people because we want to be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. So as we go along each Wednesday, we like to share some significant information that may help you through this time or help you throughout your life, because we have some great messages to communicate. We're going to start off with, let me just put it to full screen here and get to the next one. What made you laugh this past week? I think everybody needs a good laugh in this time.
Hello, it's me. I'm in California dreaming about going out to eat. Just a burger with cheese. Or a shaken margarita, baby, that crisp from Chile. Hello, can you hear me? I am shouting out to neighbors who I used to like to see when we were outside and free. Is there something else to watch besides the news and Finding Dory? The social distance between us, and I'm freaking out. Hello from the inside. It's just me and myself and I. And I say, oh, Lord, that's breaking my heart. But it's really what we should have done from the start.
Oops.
Hello from Corona Live. Like FaceTime call 1,000 times.
I think I'll pass to the next slide, everybody. Hold on. I think that fortunately, what's really nice is that we do not have to be so in our homes and screaming from our windows, although I don't know about you, but there are times when it's really difficult to be sequestered and not be running around as much as we can. So I thought that was a very appropriate video. Today is about Earth Day and how we can connect not only with ourselves, with nature, but also with each other. And I'd like to have a few people share on what relaxes them, what makes them happy, and what they're grateful for. And I'd like all of you to sort of think about it. What relaxes you? What makes you happy? What are you grateful for? Journal it, make it a part of your day. Especially, I notice that I can feel a little bit more stressed than I normally would by being sequestered at home and not being able to grocery store and all of that. So I'm going to start with Susie. Susie, you want to just share a few of those things?
Yes, I will unmute.
Okay.
And, yeah, one of the things that I do is I just get quiet. Even if I'm in my office, I'll go lie on that couch and just be completely still. Even if it's for 2 minutes, it completely calms me down. And what makes me happy is often watching something funny, whether it's the grandkids or something on YouTube. I'll pretty much only watch funny things on TV to be uplifted. And I am so grateful for life, so grateful for health. There's so many things. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, look at those trees, look at the moon coming through there. I mean, and when I find I get excited and put passion behind that gratitude, it makes a huge difference.
Thank you. Maria.
For me right now, it's gardening. I just set up a garden bed and went and bought a bunch of seedlings, and I'm also starting my own seeds and just watering them and watching them grow, and just running outside my office. I have a beautiful office, but I just need to stand in the sun for a few minutes, which I did about a half an hour ago. It just helps me to put these things in perspective, and thank God that my family's healthy, we're all employed, and we will get through this.
Thank you. Carolyn, you want to contribute some of your relaxation methods, or what makes you happy or grateful?
Sure. I'm so grateful for where I live, because my being sequestered, I'm right here basically on the Atlantic Ocean. We live on a small inlet lake that is essentially, it's the Atlantic Ocean. And so the past few days it has been warm enough, and I've been able to just say, okay, I'm leaving, I'm going swimming. And just to jump in the lake, you know, so I say that with gratitude, and probably a little envy. As you can see, it's actually warm enough for me to be outside of my deck working like this. So I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, swimming sounds fantastic to me.
And we had a manatee in our backyard just 4 or 5 days ago.
Take a picture. Oh yeah. Well, next time, take a picture. They're so beautiful.
Yeah.
And actually what's happening in my backyard right now is my lawn guy is mowing the lawn, so I don't know if it's going to be picked up. But nature makes me relaxed. I love and adore nature. And I'm grateful for all of you being on the phone call today to see all the smiling faces and friends. That I'm grateful for all of you. We'll move on to the next slide about Earth Day.
So here we are, 50 years. The first Earth Day was in 1970. Can you remember where you were in April of 1970? I know I was on a college campus, and it was a big thing. Really took to the streets. We were on college campuses. There were cities that was protesting environmental ignorance and doing a new way forward for our planet. I think I even have a t-shirt from those days that was created for that very first Earth Day. And it was a response that needed to happen. It was a response to an environment in crisis. There were oil spills, there was smog. Rivers were so polluted that they literally caught fire. And it was a time really for us to take stock of what we had done to the planet. So we launched that first modern environmental movement, and it's now recognized as the planet's largest civic event. And for those of you who don't know this, this really sparked the passage of the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act. I don't know, Carolyn, if manatees are considered an endangered species, but I'm sure there's some protection for them in the Keys right now.
Yes,
and
there
also, there is, that's great. And also the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency. This all happened 50 years ago. Now, the stakes are even higher. Let's go to the next slide. Did Joanne hear me? There we go. Up, back one. There we go. So what do we have right now? We're in the midst of a pandemic, and we're also in the midst of a huge climate crisis. And one thing that you can do to learn more and to get more engaged is to go to earthday.org and demonstrate some support for environmental protection. And this is happening over the next 24 hours. It started, 12 hours ago. And you can tune into this network and get some conversations going. There's a stream of people speaking about things they're doing to take action all over the world. And there's videos and teach-ins, and it's a very live spot. So do take some time today to join in and maybe renew your commitment about what needs to be done right now. Things are not good in our climate right now. As you know, we have hurricanes, we have rising seas, we have wildfires, we have strange behavior in our animals, and we have pandemics, and it's all linked together. Also, I discovered that the New York Times published an essential reading list about climate change. So you can Google that and see what the literature is right now about climate change. This is the first book that popped up on their list. So if you're a reader and you want to get involved more and get current with what's really happening right now, I think sometimes when we're in the midst of this huge pandemic that we're in, that we forget about the other piece of this crisis, and that is the danger our planet is in right now. So let's go to the next slide. So here we are. We're celebrating 50 years of Earth Day, and we happen to be in partnership with a company that has always been in harmony with nature and good health. And that's one of our hallmarks, one of the things we're most proud of. And when I see this first sentence, which comes from our mission brochure, when everybody else was celebrating plastic and synthetic materials, I think back to the movie The Graduate, which was, do you all remember that? Carolyn's waving her hand. But plastic was the new thing, and everyone was crazy about plastic, and it was going to be the next best thing and the next thing that people would earn their fortunes from. But we've never had to deal with plastic. I remember learning about Basic H and how the concentrate made 64 gallons of all-purpose cleaner, and that we had enough intelligence. Dr. Shaklee would say, you have enough intelligence as human beings to add water to a concentrate. We don't need to ship water around the country. So we're so proud of our heritage. Looking back 50 years, looking back, Shaklee, 64 years, I believe that's our age right now, that we have always been about being in harmony with nature, respecting our species. And we can go to the next one, Joanne. And we're about a healthier life for everyone. And that includes our, and that's what we're here for today. Let's go to the next one. Next slide, Joanne. Okay.
All right. Well, you know, it's really interesting, and I was on mute. I apologize from a little disarray on my using the PowerPoint, but I had the front door opening and the guys mowing the lawn in the background. But this slide Pam sent to me based upon what she read from the prior slide, and it's interesting. The environment is in us, not outside of us. I have gorgeous dogwood trees out in my front yard and in my backyard, and the one in the backyard looked like it was suffering a little bit. So I was talking with Pam about it, and I called an arborist. So the arborist came to my home and came to the front door, and I said, I respect the 6-foot rule, so you can stay right there. I'll open up my door. And he ended up spending an hour talking to me on the front porch and telling me more about the science of trees and nature than I had ever heard. And what really amazed me was how alike we are in the structure of the makeup of what nature is and how it truly is a part of us. Very similar makeup. He was talking about cell structure. He was talking about the different bugs and what they do and how they come in. And I just kept relating it to who we are as people. There is no difference. The intelligence factor is different, of how we communicate is different. But he was talking about how the trees communicate and what they say. And it was just fascinating. And so when Pam gave me this slide, I thought, isn't it interesting that I had now 2 experiences of how nature communicates with us. And Dr. Shaklee, if for those of you who don't have his written, it's called Birth of a Philosophy. It's a 2-page Word document that I have about Dr. Shaklee's life and listening to the laws of nature and how as a young child, that's what he started to do. So the environment is in us. It's not outside of us. It's really a part of who we are. The trees are our lungs. The river is our bloodstream. We are all interconnected. And what you do to the environment ultimately is what you do to yourself. And boy, does that speak loudly to those of us that are in harmony with nature, that want to be in harmony with nature, and how we want to share our message more and more to more people. So let me go to the next slide here. I don't know why it's freezing up. There we go. Maria, talk about beautiful trees. Here we are. And I'll unmute.
I had the privilege just a couple years ago to be in California and see those gorgeous, magnificent sequoias. They are just so majestic. And like you said, they were the lungs. And I felt like when I was standing there that I could just breathe more easily, that I could just see something so magnificent. And they do generate oxygen for us. So we do need to protect our beautiful trees. Now, I'm a visual learner, and this picture tells me, you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words. If I could clean my home with the contents of that small little box compared to that huge pile of plastic containers, then I would want to do it. The nice thing is that we have added side benefits. Not only are we keeping a lot of plastic from the landfills, but it's very economical. I mean, that Get Clean kit is just barely $100, but it represents $3,400 worth of product if we bought it elsewhere. But the biggest savings for me is the amount of packaging waste that we are keeping from the landfill. 108 pounds, that is significant if you think about how light a cardboard box is. And then the other big one is eliminating 248 pounds of greenhouse gases. To me, this makes great sense. And since I'm into decluttering, as my husband will attest, something sitting around for too long, it may get chucked. It also declutters the cabinet under which we keep our products, because the products also do multiple things. They're not just one product, one job. They do many, many different things all at the same time.
I have a funny story about that with my husband, Terry, when he was a Shaklee retail customer of mine. And he had terrible allergies. And when I said, well, what's underneath your kitchen sink? And underneath his kitchen sink, he had, of course, all of the stuff that, you know, was packed with all the different commercial chemical cleaners that you could possibly have. And I came in with a box, and I brought 3 products. I brought Basic H, Scour Off, and I think, you know, a dishwashing liquid, maybe not the dishwashing. It was a Scour Off and Basic G. And I took everything out from underneath his cabinet, and I said, these 3 products will replace all of this. And he could not believe that that was a fact. So for any of you that may not be trying our cleaners, it is very cost effective. You can see how that we can protect our landfills and that they're non-toxic, they're natural, they're biodegradable. One other little quick story about this. I live in a farming community, and this older woman would always get my dishwashing liquid, and I would deliver it to her, even though I didn't do too many deliveries at that time, because it's now delivered right to your home from Shaklee. But what she would do is she would collect her water from the dishes and go plant her, water her trees. And she noticed what a difference it made for our trees. So it actually nurtures the soil and aerates the soil, so it actually gives more breath for the trees to grow. It's really quite a remarkable product line. For those of you who haven't tried it, we'll share some other points. And go ahead, Maria. I just wanted to share a few stories.
Of course. And so I think we have a wonderful opportunity of letting people know about our products. I remember there used to be a commercial on TV years ago that said, and she told 6, and she told 6, and she told 6, and then you see the multiplication factor. And I think if we each commit to telling 6, I mean, we could really get the word out there, and it just would be simple, but it would be a gift to the person that we're sharing it with, because we all want to clean our homes, and we want to truly clean them, not just of the dirt we can see, but today especially, we want to clean them of the germs that we can't see. And even beyond that, we don't want to leave a residue, because if you have pets, you don't want them off the floor with something that will leave a residue that the pet may lick when he's, you know, licking something that may have fallen on the floor. So passing the word around, I think would be just a gift that we give to people. And by the way, when I go to bridal showers, I give the gift of cleaning, the Shaklee cleaning products, because they're starting out a brand new life.
And not just animals on the floor. What about our little baby?
Yeah, that too. That too.
Babies that are crawling around. All right.
So this is a card promotion that Shaklee is offering. We have a very long history and legacy of making the earth better by planting trees. And we know that trees, give us oxygen that we need, and they clean the soil, and they stop soil erosion. So Shaklee's committed. We've already planted in various projects throughout the world over 3 million trees. And now our next goal
10
is...
million.
How many?
10 million trees.
10 million. Thank you. And our goal now is to get to 10 million. And this week until Sunday, if anyone would buy a Shaklee product, of the Get Clean products, Shaklee will plant a tree, which is so awesome. I love the idea of planting trees, and I just planted 4 peach trees that I'm hoping someday we will enjoy the peaches from. But wherever we plant trees is really a great thing.
I placed an order yesterday, and they put right on the screen there that they had planted a tree.
Awesome.
Which was really neat, because
Awesome.
I had ordered the softer than soft. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to correct you on that. I had misunderstood.
Sure. So we've done 3, and we're headed for 10, which is awesome. It's just awesome. And so on the next slide, you'll see this.
We're going to move on to Susie right now.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you, Maria.
Sure.
That was great information. And it is all about health. And either way, if I'm breathing in the toxins, like, you ever notice when you go down the grocery store aisle, you go down the cleaners, it reeks. I literally get a headache now when I go down that aisle, and everything is sealed. So a lot of the people that are using the other cleaners, those are not sealed. They're under the sink. I had so many bottles under my sink in the past. There were so many of them. So it's 24/7 off-gassing. So it's all about our health. And if I am physically not feeling good, I'm not much good to the earth either, because I don't have energy. I don't want to do anything. I don't care much about other things. We've got to take care of our health. And you were talking about babies crawling around. I love to give the cleaners as baby products, because that is where the safety is, and parents are very concerned about health. I love this. Shaklee as a nation would be placed 8th in all of the Olympics, because we have so many Olympic athletes that choose to use our products. It's not because, here, you can have money, you don't have to use them, go out and tell people. They use them, and they love them. And we have many, many, many medal winners. And if you go to the next slide.
Well, what we're going to do is
I was going to bring Carolyn in next with this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to talk, health is so important, and especially during this quarantine time, a lot of people have seen a change in their moods and their mental health. So it's really important what you're breathing, what you're eating. There's certain foods that actually add to anxiety and depression. Processed meat, fried foods, refined sugars, pastries, high-fat dairy. And I have found that for myself. I cannot eat sugar. I'm like, I'll isolate. I don't want to see anybody. I get angry. So it's not worth it for anybody. And as I said, or the planet, because then I don't want to give. So you can see what's on this slide. We think health is the most important thing in the world for ourselves and Mother Earth, the planet. Without it, we have nothing. We all live here. So we were talking about the Olympians. There are actually 146 gold, silver, and bronze medal winners. And Carolyn actually knows a lot of these people personally. I've met some, had limited conversation, but Carolyn knows them. What do you have to say about some of them, Carolyn?
Well, one of the things that I will say is that just the ability to stand with an Olympian and to have in your hand an Olympic medal just gives me chills. I don't know about you, but just to think about what that signifies, and just a little bit about the story of how the Olympic connection happened with Shaklee. It's really the power of word of mouth, because one of our business teams who has a business team with them, it was like children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, one of our, say, great-grandchildren business teams, their kids grew up together, and one of the kids who grew up was Eli Bremer, who we now know, many of us are familiar with his name. He is a Olympic pentathlete, and he is the captain of the what's called the Shaklee Pure Performance Olympians. They live in Colorado Springs, and so he's able to train at the Olympic training facility. But Eli started using the products because a classmate of his and their parents were Shaklee people. And while he was training as a teenager, he was having some health issues. They gradually decided to start using Shaklee. He started getting the results. And as a result of that, through all kinds of extension, he is connected with a number of, there are over, I believe, 100 Olympians who have actually been connected with Shaklee, that are sponsored by the Shaklee Corporation, not with like, here's $50,000, but with products and with the use of the products while they're training. And as a result of that, over the years, since 1980, the Shaklee using Olympians have earned 146 gold, silver, and bronze medals. And as the slide before said, if Shaklee were a nation, we would actually be qualified as the 8th largest winning, award-winning group in of Olympians. And what that says to me is two things. The things that we want is we want products that are safe, and we want products that work. And how better to validate that than the fact that we have actively drug-tested Olympians who are using the products, so we know they're safe. And if you're going to win 146 Olympic medals, you know the products work. And that to me is just a wonderful validation, and the power of being able to tell our stories and have our stories connect with lots of other people.
Thank you. It's great to hear the personal connection. Jennifer.
Hi. Well,
I was just going to introduce you. Sorry, I was on mute.
shall I go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay. So hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer. I actually asked Joanne if I could contribute to our smoothie of the week to take that responsibility off of her. I'm also crazy about smoothies, and I'm always coming up with things. And one day, maybe it'll be this summer with all the time I have, I really want to write a recipe book on smoothies and blended foods. So this is one of my favorites. I've played with a lot of, I'm into texture and flavor balancing in my smoothies. So I love to throw spinach in my smoothie. Now, I don't know how many of you, how green you get your smoothies. If you don't, start with some spinach. It's pretty benign, and it adds nice, Carolyn, it adds a nice creamy flavor. So this particular smoothie, I just made it for the photo shoot, had it on Friday, made it for this photo shoot for today. It's basically a cup of cashew milk or milk of your choice, frozen mango. I just put a cup, but I literally just throw stuff in there, you know, by the handful. 2 scoops of the Vanilla Life Shake. Now, I like to put the energizing green tea in there because it's going to be kind of a green smoothie. It does help cut the sweetness of the mango. 1 to 2 handfuls or more of spinach, but 1 to 2 handfuls is safe if you're not sure about how to experiment with greens in your smoothie. And then I like to put our fiber in the smoothie also. Any way to get fiber, I think, is a great thing to do. And then I didn't do it here because I didn't have any in the house, but top with a handful of coconut flakes or some oats if you want some extra fiber. And then the other option is if you didn't want all that mango, you could do half avocado and then about half a cup of mango or so with that spinach. All of those flavors go together really well. And I myself, you can see from the picture, I like to make it like a pudding, and I actually eat it with a spoon. So if you haven't tried it, please try it. I love throwing in the energizing green tea just for a little punch. Sometimes I throw the pomegranate in for a berry-based smoothie. Just a nice way to get more nutrition in your shake.
It's interesting. I haven't seen cashew milk, and that sounds delicious. So I'm assuming this is a really tasty green drink.
It's very creamy. I switched to cashew because when I was looking at nut milks, a lot of them had carrageenan in them. And cashew in my store was the one that didn't have carrageenan, which is like an emulsifier that irritates your gut. And so I switched to the cashew milk, and I'm sure there's other ones now have taken out the carrageenan since then, but I'm such a creature of habit. It's only 25 calories and I grab the same one every time.
And you get that at the health food store?
No, Publix is our local grocery store, so I get it at our Publix. It's near the almond milk. You have to really look hard for it. I found like the almond milks were too watery, but this 25-calorie cashew milk was on the thicker side, even though it didn't have carrageenan or some of those harmful products. And it's just made by I think it's Blue Diamond, who also makes the almond milks. It's just funny that that's the one they don't put carrageenan in.
Well, that's interesting. I usually like in my shakes, I like my shake liquidy, but I like to make a pudding also, so I could, try different things. Thank you. It looks fabulous.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, we're going to go back to Carolyn.
So we're really about living in harmony with nature and making a difference. And I can tell you just a real quick overview of my personal story. I was actually introduced to Shaklee not too long after the original Earth Day. And my mother was using some of the cleaning products. And she said, now I was visiting my mom for a weekend, my family for a weekend. And my mom said, now don't use too much. This is concentrated and it doesn't pollute. Well, that got my attention because I was at that time living in Southern California, and I had just come back from living in, imagine and picture, I was living in the South Pacific, in Polynesia, on a Polynesian island with the Peace Corps. So if you can imagine the coconut palm trees swaying on the beautiful, unmessed up water and a completely clean environment. And that's where I'd been. And I ended up in Southern California where you couldn't breathe and you couldn't drink the water. And my mother said, well, these products don't pollute. Well, that got my attention. And I said, okay, where do you get these things? And what you have to remember is this is before anybody cared about the word ecology or biodegradable or environmental. It was just not, the first Earth Day was really a pioneering event. And so it got my attention. And as a result, that began the venture that has caused us, for me to have the Shaklee business life that I've had since then. But it was the environmental products that started it, and the introduction to our wonderful mentors, Mary and Gary Loomis, and being introduced to not only the environmental products, but then that picture of the tree and the life stream of the trees is being introduced to. If we're going to take care of the environment, we also, the rivers and streams of the planet, maybe we should also take care of the rivers and streams of our body, which is the introduction to the nutritional products. So to me, it's just all the opportunity to be able to live in harmony with nature. We can make a difference. We only make a difference one person at a time. But just like with the example of the connections with the Olympians, one person at a time can lead to another, can lead to another, can lead to another. And through that, that's really the movement that we represent to be the spokespeople for living in harmony with nature, to be able to make that difference.
Carolyn, you sent me a great email or text regarding the difference we've already seen by being sequestered. Do you have that list that you could share? Because I found it so impactful.
Well, yes, I've seen pictures over the past 2 or 3 weeks of changes in the planet that people have been able to see and notice as a result of people being sequestered, because we're not burning as much carbon fuels, where people aren't driving, we're not flying airplanes, we're not, burning up a whole lot of things. And as a result, one of the pictures that I've specifically noticed was in the northern part of India, with no pollution, they were actually able to see over 100 miles away the foothills of the Himalayas. And it was over 100 miles away. And there were residents in India who said they had not been able to see that for over 30 years. Just some of the differences in the visuals of what has become cleared up, what we've, some of the satellite photos of what actually has been able to be visible. And so we can make a difference, one person at a time. And I just think it's very dramatic for us to see those results. So we've had to force ourselves to stop, but.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, sort of nature correcting itself too, which is what we've thought about with what this COVID-19 is doing. And I remember if Earth Day is 50 years old today, I remember when I was introduced to Shaklee, and just at that time, Florida banned all phosphates out of their cleaners. And that's why we said, oh, and I said, well, wonderful. I now have a product line that never had phosphates in it. So it's interesting for those of us who've been around quite a while. We've seen the history of what taking care of getting the caustic chemicals. It still needs work. We still need to be aware, and we still need to talk about it because people get lazy. And I think a part of COVID-19 wakes us up to say, we can't be that lazy anymore. We really have to stand up and make better choices for our own homes. And as Carolyn has said a number of times now, one person at a time, and we're that one person that can make a big difference. So it just continues, Carolyn, as you were gonna say, that pass the word along, right?
There's a very simple video that if you can't find it, ask whoever invited you, that tells the story of an area up in northern New York that was totally overcome by the phosphates and the pollution. This lake was completely messed up. And as a result of the actions of one Shaklee person, Bill Firth, they actually got everyone around the lake to change what they were using in their cleaning products, and that lake completely cleaned up. There's a video that shows that and really says this is the difference can be made by one person, and then creating a collection of people that will be willing to work together.
Fabulous. Very good. Thank you. Maria.
Well, when my kids were teenagers and they would balk at some rule that I had, they would say to me, why do I have to do that? And I'd say, because it's the right thing to do. And Shaklee has been doing the right thing because it was the right thing to do. So because gardening is so near and dear to my heart, this picture just helps me have hope that we can turn things around. And we had the privilege a few years ago of working with an amazing woman from Kenya, Dr. Wangari Maathai. She was the first Nobel laureate who was recognized for the environmental work that she did. And we had the privilege of working with her and planting over 1 million trees in Kenya to help them with having firewood, but also to help with their soil erosion, which was a real problem for them. So here it was, one woman decided to make a difference, and she really, really did make a difference, and we played a role, which I'm tickled to. I mean, I'll probably never know anyone from Kenya, but I'm just tickled to know we had that impact. And here are a few of, by the way, the many, many magnificent, groundbreaking initiatives that Shaklee has taken, starting with, in 1960, the introduction of Basic H, which is a magnificent product that has so many different uses. And then, of course, as we were talking earlier, Joanne mentioned about phosphate-free laundry detergent. There it is. We did that back in the day before it was fashionable. And I always like to remember that Shaklee was green when green was just a color. And then we have helped to plant trees in Nepal. I won't go through all of the pictures that you see there, but one of the greatest accomplishments was in 2000, Shaklee was recognized to be climate neutral. It was a voluntary thing that we did. And we were the first in the world to have that amazing recognition. And there have been many, many other things. And right now, all of us can jump into this wonderful initiative of planting additional trees. So our goal is 10 million by sharing these amazing products that work, but they're also good for the environment. They're also economical, and they will make a positive, magnificent change for our planet. And I really feel that when I see that little green seedling, that if we commit to this, the earth will take a deep breath, knowing that hope is on the way.
Well said. We are about a better world, and we welcome all of you that are new on the call today to hear some of the wonderful attributes that we have to offer Mother Earth, because we can make a difference. I want to mention that we do have this wellness series outreach to each of you, and we talk about the power to make sense of changes and choices. So same Zoom room, same time, every Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we'll be discussing an interesting thing. We talked about lunch. Well, next week, we're going to be talking about healthy choices. I don't know about you, but comfort foods has been good to me too much in the last few days. And so I really need to look at some of those wonderful smoothies, eating my yogurt, eating my cottage cheese, making things tasty, but still enjoying food, because I'm Italian and I love food. So I do like to make sure it's very tasty. So join us next week. Here's a special broadcast for those of you that would like to see it. This is 15 minutes long. It was 15 minutes when he first broadcast it. If you haven't seen it, it's Roger Barnett, our CEO and owner of Shaklee. He has such a great message, a great insight. So take a further look. It's tomorrow evening, 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's only 15 minutes of your time. And you can see our owner is a visionary. He has a mission and a passion for what we stand for and who we are. So give it a look. It's events.shaklee.com/live-stream. And we look forward to seeing you next week. And you can invite as many guests as you like. I have maximum usage of the Zoom room. And what we'd like to do right now is we'll end the recording. These are recorded. We do have a recording for those of you that like to share it and pass it along. But we'll open it up now for just some conversation for those that want to stay on, to just chat and make some comments. I had 2 energy chews, so I can continue going with this. And I love my energy chews. They really wake me up. So we'll do that. We'll go forward with anybody who has some conversation that you'd like to add. And if you feel you'd like to leave, please feel free. You don't have to stay on for any longer than the presentation we've just had.
Hey, Joanne, this is Scott. I want to jump in and try and share a picture from here that, ironically, Sue's sitting 2 feet away from me. We live together. We don't have to observe the 6-foot rule. But while you guys are talking about your arborist and then Carolyn was talking about Mother Earth, Sue emailed me a picture. So I'm going to try and share it off, and she can talk about it for a second.
Okay.
There really isn't anything to talk about, but there's... Wow. Really, yeah, there's your similarity.
Wow.
Wow.
The close-up of the leaf, the blood vessel, the human heart, and
Wow.
the overhead river network of the Amazon.
Wow.
And some of you may recall this is a screenshot I snagged from Shaklee several years back. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to mention,
That's
a friend of mine has a little cabin way out, and the kitchen sink drains out into a little pond out back. And she used to, when they were staying up there at that cabin, she used to always enjoy doing the dishes at the sink, because she was always watching this little frog that would hop in and out of the pond and be swimming around, and was usually pretty active during the time she was doing the dishes. She ran out of her Shaklee, at that time, satin sheen, and bought something else. And I got a phone call after she made her last trip up there saying, my little frog isn't in the pond. He's sitting on the side. I think he doesn't like the cheap stuff I bought. Can I get some more? And within just 48 hours switching back, her little frog was jumping around in the pond again.
Wow.
That's a great story.
Love
And
it, Sue.
I want the slide, Scott. So would you please send it to me? That gave me goosebumps.
I'll send it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That gave me goosebumps, really. And this was what the arborist was saying, and I kept relating it to who I was. It was remarkable. I have a story about when I went to Michigan, and I did a meeting for my Michigan group. And, you know, they, of course, have the lakes there. And one woman was telling me that they were finding in one of their lakes, I'm not sure which, the Lake Michigan, that they were having frogs that were deformed. And like with their heads and their eyes, 3 eyes, just a deformed frogs based upon the pollution that was in the water. And that's why my group in Michigan were very much involved with our organic cleaning products.